This is a show about finding out what old people feel like on the inside and maybe a bit of self-discovery along the way. Welcome to Old Think Good? Over the past couple of time units I have gone ahead and dedicated myself to playing games from eras which I personally never got to experience, taking notes and then documenting that journey in the form of what I would refer to as aesthetic shitposts. Please treat these videos accordingly. Let us fire up our old Super Slim and enter the still active PlayStation 3 online store so that we can make it to the next stop of our journey. PlayStation's answer to the question, is it pink? Spyro the Dragon. And I know, he is technically purple, but purple is just an edgy pink, and pink is just purple with a personality disorder. It's very funny, as for the most part of human history, purple has stood for exactly one thing: berry-flavored food items. But Spyro was released in the brief time window in which the color actually stood for hunting down quadrupedic life forms, being 5 foot tall, and skateboarding minigames. He also has a bit of gold on his body, which historically has stood for, man, this is a really good video game. And I can say that before actually starting to play, because I just so happen to already have played a little bit of Spyro Year of the Dragon for about 2 evenings back in mid-2011. But today we will do Spyro the Dragon, a cool, cheeky, snarky fast food icon, watching on as a cow burns in a sea of flames. And a green man is also there. There is exactly one adjective that comes to my mind when describing reptiles: Insomniac. It is wonderful when a game's starting screen already tells you what to expect. This man seems to have a problem with green people. Quite brave for somebody who is purple without having been punched for it first. In the world of dragons, the dragons spend their time the way you would expect them to, by operating a TV station and using it to interview themselves. We learn about how there is peace in the 5 worlds, but there is a green man called Gnasty Gnorc, who is in the process of turning gemstones into warriors. The G in Gnasty stands for geologist, I assume. The dragons then decide to publicly insult Gnasty Gnorc.
That does it!
And after getting cyberbullied by a set of mythological creatures, Gnasty Gnorc uses his magic to turn Spyro's family into a selection of rare earth elements.
Looks like I've got some things to do.
And our adventure begins. Let's talk about the actual adventuring in this adventure. You go out and start collecting your family members, freeing them from the shackles of minerals. It's a shame, some of them would look damn fine on my balcony. Another thing to collect are gems, mostly just laying around doing nothing for the gross domestic product, but you also are incentivized to slime people in order to access them. These are the warriors Gnasty Gnorc has created. They come in a large variety, ranging from he's just a little guy to you are not allowed within 500 feet of any retirement facility. Spyro treats all of them the same, by taking away their newly acquired consciousness and turning them back into gemstones. I assume the implication here is that Spyro has done at least a couple of semesters in geology and just knows how to do this. It's important to collect absolutely everything an area has to offer before moving on. Otherwise, you are playing the game wrong. At least that's what my brain is telling me. Spyro has all of the properties a berry-flavored individual usually carries. He runs, he flames, he glides. Now that is most unfortunate. In order to avoid harm, there is a dodge roll available. If I got $1 every time I failed a dodge roll in real life, nothing would change for me. But you can really tell that the Spyro the Dragon formula would not be perfected up until Elden Ring. Following Barry around is this whimsical little creature, Sparks. He shows us how much health we have left. Yes, this PS1 game really got rid of a health bar for the sake of immersion. We fill up our conscious HP bar by hunting down generally harmless life forms like sheep, for example, releasing the butterflies living inside of them, which Sparks then eats. No idea how that works. Maybe the Welsh can give their input on this one. At this point I had a multiple-minute segment speculating about the potential lore implications of these insects, but it got a bit too intense even for my taste. Never write a YouTube script while sitting in public transportation. Stay safe out there. Sparks is not the only insect supporting Spyro. Just like in Crash Bandicoot, you save your game by talking to a woman. This time you don't find her on a treetop, you find her floating. With an arsenal of knowledge, strength and insects, Spyro wages full-on asymmetric warfare against the Gnorcs. We even get minigames in which you conduct targeted airstrikes against their infrastructure, destroying their resources, railway lines and aircraft, making sure that after they leave this world, the things they created follow right after. Once you feel comfortable to do so, you can talk to the local inflation specialist and take a balloon to another hub world in order to find more collectibles and family members over there. You can really tell how much of a loyal family man Spyro is, because if my greater extended family was turned into minerals, I have a cousin or two who would definitely get turned into a vase. Blood may be thicker than water, but so are quicksilver and bromine, both of which are elements on the periodic table. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now that we have found out what Spyro tastes like, it is time to take a quick trip down to the American West Coast in order to take a quick look at what another fast food icon has been up to.
Guess who's back? After a short vacation, Crash returns. This time he'll have to fight his way through huge, all-new 3D environments. He'll fly with a jetpack, surf on a jetboard. Yahoo! He'll even have to avoid a stampeding polar bear. It's a good thing he's got new moves, because he'll face plenty of dangerous new obstacles. Crash is back, and he's better than ever.
Who's the man? I think we know who the man is.
PlayStation.
Coming to us by way of the still active PlayStation 3 online store,
Crash Bandicoot 2. Cortex Strikes Back.
Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. As for whose back he is striking, we need to briefly talk about the ending of Crash 1. The game ended with Crash freeing his furry GF from the mad scientist and then riding off into the sunset. And then she was riding him in the sunset. A happy ending indeed, but not one that would last for very long, because she ended up leaving him. That is already bad, right? Now wait till you find out that she left him for a rat. Now wait till you find out that the rat is from Illinois, specifically Chicago. And I don't know about you people, but I don't want to imagine what that did to his mental health. The whole situation most certainly had a very profound impact on Crash. He ended up moving back in with his sister, Coco Bandicoot. Cortex in the meantime built a space station. After the ending of Game 1, he discovered the concept of crystals and decided that he wants more of them. It is very interesting to see how important geology was in 90s gaming. This is where our plot really starts.
Crash? Crash? Crash! My battery is fried. Make yourself useful, big brother, and bring an extra battery for me.
The implication here is, of course, that Crash has a way of turning the resources of the jungle into single-use laptop batteries. All Mascot platformers have a background in academia, it seems. The Cortex then strikes his back and teleports him into a warp room, opening up the actual gaming in this game. Cortex tells the funny Dorito man that he needs to collect crystals in order to save the world or something, and Crash goes out to do so. In terms of gameplay, Crash 2 makes Crash 1 feel like a tech demo. This game looks, feels and feels better in every single aspect. You can also do much more, like crawling, sliding and jumping extra high. Combine these two moves into reaching even further. Levels are so much better. There is much more variety, many different locations as well. We do not just jump around on the island archipelago from the first game anymore, and I could give you a speculation segment about why there's still crates, fruits and masks everywhere, but my bus has arrived at my destination. I am not sitting in public transportation anymore. What I can say is that the actual stage design is so much better. It makes Crash 1 feel like a design document. The amount of secrets, alternative pathways, collectibles, and when Crash wins a stage, he doesn't just orgasm anymore, he now dances. We also were absolutely blessed by the fact that a multitude of the quality of unalive features were removed. You can save whenever you want to, you can still get collectibles even after passing away, you can try out the bonus stages as often as you want to. I feel like I'm actually having fun here. In Crash 1 you had an introductory cutscene, but in this one you get bombarded with cutscenes. As the game progresses, the plot progresses. Crash does his best in collecting crystals, gems and bodies, eliminating both former Cortex assets and new characters. Cortex keeps instructing him, making sure that the Dorito continues to follow his orders, but soon Coco Bandicoot attempts to get into contact with her brother, trying to get him out of there. An emotional plot filled with hope and betrayal ensues. One can only wonder how Coco must have felt about this entire situation. Losing a loved one unexpectedly without the time to prepare has to be one of the most gut-wrenching feelings possible, especially when the last interaction you had with them was brief, fleeting and open-ended. Remember to spend as much time with your loved ones as possible. You never know when you will interact with them for the last time. This game has a B-plot as well. You shoot a double-leg takedown on a polar bear and it results in you adopting him. I just assume this is legal inside of the Arctic Circle. His family tries to get him back, but the little chap stays with us. I am deeply fond of him. He is giving me a lot of life. Literally. In general, Crash 2 has a very strong story and world building. If Spyro the Dragon is the spiritual predecessor to Elden Ring, then Crash 2 is the spiritual predecessor to The Last of Us. It is in this game that Nate Dogg really started to show the storytelling qualities all of his releases would continue to carry well into the future. Really, this game makes Crash 1 feel like an idea. The reason we talked about Crash and then Spyro is hidden in the last video on this channel, because both of them were things that were put in the Happy Meal LCD toy. That was in the early 2000s, however. Way more brand work of that kind was done in the 90s. Crash Bandicoot, for example, worked together with Japanese car manufacturer Nissan. I accidentally found out about this by watching a YouTube re-upload of the 2003 K1 World Grand Prix. But that is nothing against the amount of money Lara Croft must have made. It is our duty to visit some of the highlights of her career. Among other things, she turned into a brand ambassador for British sugar water manufacturer Lucozade in 1999. Also in 1999, she became a brand ambassador for Spanish car manufacturer Seat, showing a strong European focus for her brand work. Both of these gigs give us multiple minutes worth of 3D animations, which add a great lot to her lore and her character. I assume this is what 90s gamers were tossing their cocks over. Most importantly, however, Lara turned into a brand ambassador for the original PlayStation, of course. And through that gig, she even started working together with the Orange Creature. Now I know what you are thinking, this bit is going to lead us into a segment in which we try out Tomb Raider 2 to see how much it has improved. No. Now let's look at this absolute beauty over there. I personally consider clowns to be the worst thing humanity has created. Up there with nuclear warfare and NHL FaceOff 97. But I will make an exception for this one, because you see, this clown is special. He makes a living out of driving around in an ice cream van armed with machine guns and firebombs in order to hunt down his enemies. Usually seeing a clown in a van should not make you say this, but I think fun for the whole family is inbound. By way of the still active PlayStation 3 online store, it's time to twist our metal. Developed by a studio called Single Track and released in 1995 and 1996, depending on your jurisdiction, a car game with vehicular combat. And from what I gathered, this series was actually quite a big deal on the original PlayStation. An incredibly immersive cutscene introduces us to our setting. A man named Calypso, there is the seemingly obligatory brand collaboration, has set up a tournament in Los Angeles. A bunch of people in vehicles will fight each other, and the person who survives by the end is gonna be rewarded by receiving whatever they want. Achieving your hopes and dreams by destroying a Californian city? Now that's what you call thinking outside the box. That's the setup. You now choose your contestant from an illustrious set of characters. You play through the tournament, and if you win, you achieve their character ending. The characters are where the game shines. The most outstanding one is of course our poster boy, Sweet Tooth, or Needless Kane, as he is actually called. It seems like his legs are working perfectly. Then there is this guy who looks like who you would usually expect to be in a creepy van. He entered the tournament to find his son. And he also has the same last name as Sweet Tooth. Must be a translation error. Other highlights include, but are not limited to, Darkseid, who some of you might be familiar with, as he usually appears to people who enjoy indulging in a bit of Fent consumption. Then there is Thumper, whose answer to the question "is it pink?" would be yes. Totally valid, by the way. If Spyro can fight a guerrilla war in purple, Thumper can thump in pink. Then there is Warthog, who I presume chose his name because of the medical conditions his genital area is facing. International representation is achieved by adding Le Spectreux, who we can assume to be the only Canadian in this tournament, and Roadkill, who is representing Birmingham. He is not actually from there, he just looks like it. Somebody else we should mention is Outlaw, who is not an actual outlaw, but a police officer who entered the tournament in order to end the tournament. I think this is what you call gentrification. We can consider him to be the villain of this game. I played with my sweetheart Sweet Tooth. Without looking up anything, I just jumped straight into it, and as I should have expected, I got absolutely destroyed. It's not funny, and I will not expand on this point. But by now I know how to deal with this. I went ahead and looked at the game's manual, something I had not done since the last video. By doing that, I learned how to properly maneuver, how to spin the weapon wheel, how to utilize all of my in-game pickups properly. I learned that there are healing pads, which I absolutely have to use, and by applying that knowledge and trying over and over, I managed to achieve some decent success. And I may have only played on the easiest difficulty, but I did manage to reach Sweet Tooth's ending. One thing I briefly want to mention is there is a first-person mode. Completely deranged. Reminds me of that one brief time I worked for my uncle. When you win all of the stages, you get a character ending. Sweet Tooth's stated wish was to get a friend. Well, once he gets to Calypso, he receives a bag. No, that is not a slang word for money or for something sniffable, but an actual physical bag, who he refers to as Crazy Harold the Wacky Lunch Sack. Calypso gets angry, and the platonic clown and bag duo speeds off into the LA night. Yes, all of this actually happened. And we just annihilated 11 other contestants and half a city for it. Comment down below which city you would destroy in order to achieve your biggest dreams. Apparently, the ending of the character Outlaw is considered canon, and he achieves his goal of living in a world without the tournament by being launched into outer space. That's not even a monkey's paw, that's a gorilla's fisting. Sweet Tooth would end up participating in the second tournament, and I assume it was in the time between the games that he started working together with PlayStation. This fine gentleman is a perfect example for how family-friendly mascots in that era were used in marketing. Twisted Metal was made by the same people who made Moto, a studio called Singletrack. As of me making this video, I am playing the second installments in both series, of course by way of the still active PlayStation 3 online store. The beauty of those purchases is that they carry over, meaning that if I boot up the fifth ear of Sony, those games are available to play there, without any further transactions required. These two series have a lot in common. Here, let me visualize it by drawing in my early 2000s low-poly buzzword notebook. It came with this filter. Both of these two games were owned by Sony. After they made the first two games, Singletrack wanted to move on to different things. They did that, but the studio ended up dying a few years after, and they were bought up by some other publisher. The two series, meanwhile, were moved to another studio, 989 for Twisted Metal and Pacific Coast Power and Light for Moto. I don't know how a power plant operator can make video games, but apparently it did just that, and both of these two series would be published by this 989 person moving forward. Among countless other games, including multiple NHL FaceOffs. What a coincidence. Once they were with 989, the games ended up getting worse reviews and both series mostly fizzled out. Moto died off completely after one more game, two further games were in development but never released, while Twisted Metal continued to get some games later on, never to the success of the originals, and 989 Studios itself was shut down in the year 2000. So yeah, two of the most important series in the early days of the original PlayStation were completely screwed over by behind-the-scenes stuff. Man, this era of gaming holds up perfectly. Let's come to a bit of a conclusion. I don't think we have played enough to come to a bit of a conclusion. Originally, all of this was meant to be just one big video, now it ended up being part 1 and 2, and this duology of videos really is just the starting point. Together we are going to continue to walk the road of nostalgia and try out every old thing along the way. Which leads us to our next topic. Our main focus for now will be limited to the original PlayStation. But as many comments under the last video correctly pointed out, there is one big thing that is essential to understanding that era of gaming, which we shall get into next. I actually planned on doing that for the next video anyways, so it's funny how many of you were demanding it as well. Thank you for watching and see you next time. I will let my most favorite Australian introduce the next topic.
Don't you know that this stuff is filled with backward messages?
Eat pizza on stuffed crust pizza backwards. Hail to the Crash.
See?
Dude, you said that.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
You did.
Infinity.
What?
Crash is at Pizza Hut. Now when you buy a medium one-topping stuffed crust pizza for $10.99, you get a free PlayStation demo disc with games like Spyro 2 Ripto's Rage, Gran Turismo 2, and more.
Pause. Unpause.
Stuffed crust, another one of the best tasting pizzas under one roof.